Hi there, this is Self-Critical Automaton, and I have decided to start doing Let's Plays. So, I'm going to kick it off with Dark Souls, which is a fantastic game about which I have a ton to say. So, without further ado, new game. I'm going to name my character Catherine, because I have a stable of names for different characters in games, one of which is Catherine Halifax, but the Halifax won't fit in the name box, so she's just Catherine. Naturally, I want to be a lady. I'm going to play the Deprived character class. Each character class only determines your starting point in the game. It doesn't lock you into any particular playstyle, so you could start as the hunter and end up playing in heavy armor with a massive shield. You could start as a knight and end up playing as a wizard. You know, it all depends on how you arrange your stats throughout the game. So it really only decides your starting gear and your starting stats. The Deprived has an even spread of stats across the across the whole board, and almost no starting equipment. There is a particular reason I'm choosing this character class, and that's because essentially I want to show off as much of the game as possible, and if I pick to be a warrior or a wizard or a cleric or whatever, that will lock me into a particular playstyle simply because of how my brain works. Like, I mean, the game wouldn't lock me into a particular playstyle, I would lock myself in. Yeah. The gift is a bonus that you get at the beginning of the game. Some of them are consumables, such as this healing consumable, the Goddess Blessing, or these damage consumables, Black Firebombs, or this humanity consumable, humanity being a resource I will talk about later. Yeah, binoculars are really easy to get. They're right at the beginning of the game, so there's no point picking them as your gift. The pendant has no use, and it was placed in the game as a essentially a joke by the game's director. Although they did add a use later on. I think I can't remember, but it was one of the updates to the game lets you trade it with a certain NPC for, I forget exactly what for, some minor item. The master key lets you open, it says any basic lock, but what that really means is a certain handful of locks, most of which are related to shortcuts. So that's what I would usually pick, but since this is to show off as much content as possible, I'm going to go with the Old Witch's Ring, which has two uses, one of which is the same as that of the pendant, the other of which is it lets you talk to an NPC who is otherwise mute. Finally, the Tiny Being's Ring. It says it recovers your HP slowly while it's equipped. That's not actually true. The tooltips is wrong. What it actually does is it boosts your maximum HP by something tiny. It's like 8%, which, you know, it's not that bad. But yeah. So yeah, I'm going to go with the Old Witch's Ring. Physique, I'm going to go with large, or very large rather, because frankly, I like being large and I like hitting things. So I'm going to pick Astoran Royalty for my face type, because I always like being the princess if I can. I'm going to go with Ponytail A and red hair. There we go, I am looking fine. So yeah, without further ado, I will accept and watch the first cutscene. I'm going to try and avoid talking over it because I'll need to refer back to it quite a lot, and I don't want you to have confused information.
In the age of ancients, the world was unformed, shrouded by fog. A land of grey crags, arched trees, and everlasting dragons. But then there was fire, and with fire came disparity. Heat and cold, life and death, and of course, light and dark. Then from the dark they came and found the souls of lords within the flame. Nito, the first of the dead, the Witch of Asylum, and her daughters of Chaos. Gwyn, the Lord of Sunlight, and his faithful knights. And the furtive pygmy, so easily forgotten. With the strength of lords, they challenged the dragons. Gwyn's mighty bolts peeled apart their stone scales. Witches weaved great firestorms. Nito unleashed a miasma of death and disease. And Seath, the scales, betrayed his own, and the dragons were no more. Thus began the Age of Fire. But soon the flames will fade, and only dark will remain. Even now, there are only embers. And man sees not light, but only endless nights. And amongst the living are seen carriers of the accursed dark side. Yes, indeed. The dark sign brands the undead. And in this land, the undead are corralled and led to the north. Where they are locked away to await the end of the world.
So yeah, now that mysterious narrator lady is done talking, I can take a turn,
This
hooray!
is your fate.
Okay, now I can talk. So yeah, pretty shitty place to start, really. Locked in a cell. It's, not really clear what the, wow, okay, I really need some moisturiser. Oh look, corpse. Hello, corpse. Thanks, guy who's presumably not also a corpse. I'll treasure it always. So yeah, I'm not looking my best. The thing about being undead means that you've been cursed with the dark sign. And undead is a particular kind of a thing. It's not like in most fantasy where undead just generally refers to anything that's not a living person or a dead body that's still dead. I mean, you know, poor guy. Can't blame him. Wow, okay, that's a big thing. We're gonna fight him a lot. We're gonna fight him a lot later on. But for now, I'm just gonna get out of this dark, dank hole. The narrator mentioned that in this land, the undead are led to the north. That's actually an interesting thing, because every nation seems to deal with their undead in a different way, and quite a lot of them try to just straight up destroy them. Although, how they do that is unclear, because the problem is, the undead keep coming back. Like, that's what makes them undead. You kill them, and a little bit later, they get back up again. And they slowly lose their humanity over time and with deaths. So the reason they're locked up in the asylum is because eventually they will just become hollows. There seems to be no concrete line between being a human being and being an undead and being a hollow. It's, I'm just gonna dodge around here because I don't want to fight him. He's the, bit anticlimactic, I know. About a third of a bar of the boss music started playing there, but you're not supposed to fight him at this point. You can, and it's possible to kill him, but it takes forever. It's intentionally very difficult. You do get a bonus item for doing so, but it's not very useful because it takes 40 strength to wield it. It's the Demon's Great Hammer, and yeah, it's impossible to have 40 strength at this point in the game unless you are on New Game Plus. But if you're on New Game Plus, then you have a bunch of equipment and you can kill him easily anyway. And frankly, most of your equipment is going to be better by then than the Demon's Great Hammer anyway. Whoops, I did not mean to do that. Put the club in the main hand and the shield in the offhand. There we go. So, yeah, the Asylum. It's, not the best way of dealing with a social problem, but I mean, if they are eventually just going to go full zombie, it's safer not to have them in a human habitation centre. And interestingly, there's never any indication as to how the dark sign propagates. Do people just find themselves cursed with it one day? Is it something you're born with? Also, the other benefit to being very familiar with this game is that you know where all the traps are. Haha! So suck on that, guy who threw the boulder. I also like that the bricks are physics enabled for a brief moment so you can kick them around. Oh look, it's that guy who likes to drop corpses in holes.
You're no hollow.
How can you tell? I look like a hollow.
I'm done for, I'm afraid. I'll die soon, then lose my sanity. I wish to ask something of you. You and I are both undead. Hear me out, will you?
It's always tempting to say no, but, you know.
I have failed in my mission, but perhaps you can keep the torch lit. There was an old saying in my family, "Thou who art undead art chosen, and thine exodus from the undead asylum maketh pilgrimage to the land of ancient lords. When thou ringest the bell of awakening, the fate of the undead thou shalt know." Well, now you know, and I can die with hope in my heart. Oh, one more thing. Here, take this.
Whoops.
An Estus flask. An undead favourite.
Also referred to by fans of the game as Sunny D.
Oh, and this.
More keys, fantastic.
Now I must bid farewell. I would hate to harm you after death. So go now. And thank you.
Yeah, you say that, so like, can I have your stuff? No? Okay, fine, be that way. In a moment you will hear a noise. There it is. That noise is the "a thing just died" noise. You hear it pretty much any time you kill something, or something, you know, falls off a cliff or whatever. Can't believe I let that guy hit me. It has been a really long time since I played, so my skills are a little rusty, but hopefully they'll pick up soon enough. And, you can go back in that room, but he doesn't leave a corpse, he just, disappears. Which actually does have an in-game explanation, interestingly. We'll hear later on about how time is all messed up in Lordran. Presumably because of it being the end times. So yeah, these guys are hollows. I suppose the only difference between me and them is that I don't have glowing orange eyes. Maybe that's how he could tell that I wasn't a hollow yet. Although, as you can see by my desperate need for moisturiser, I am well on the way to being one. Still need to fight this guy, and it's impossible to go through that door until much later on. This guy is supposed to be here to teach you to do the parrying mechanic, but I'm absolutely terrible at it, so I'm going to wait until later in the game before I do any parrying at all. I'm just going to keep hitting him. So I'll take this moment to talk about the UI and the basic mechanics. It's a really good combat game. There's a lot of interplay between weapon and shield. The red bar is my health, unsurprisingly. The green bar is my stamina. Pretty much everything costs you stamina, but it recharges quickly. If you run out of stamina, you get staggered, or knocked back, or knocked down, or, you know, whatever. Just next to that is a number, 00 at the moment. That's currently a grey circle. That means that I am in hollow mode rather than human mode. You can sacrifice humanity to become human, and yeah, then that number becomes not grey anymore. Then down below that, in the bottom right, we have 4 item slots. Right hand, left hand, item, and magic. So the only slot that's not filled at the moment is magic, and you can cycle between these, but obviously I don't have any other items at the moment, so yeah. And then on the bottom right is my souls. Souls are essentially XP and currency at the same time. I've probably got a bit to talk about later on about what it means that they're called souls. Similarly, what it means that humanity is called humanity, and what it means that some things are a demon and some things aren't demons, and what it means to be a god and what godhood means, and the metaphors in the opening cutscene and all this mythology stuff. But for now, I'm going to go fight a big monster. This is a fog gate. They serve to partition areas of content, but once you've walked through it, if there's a boss on the other side, the boss just stays there. Sorry, the wall? What is it called? The mist gate stays there until you've beaten the boss. But there are other mist gates as well. Wow, okay, yeah. I really am a bit rusty in my skills. I can't believe I let him get me. I normally beat this guy with no trouble. So, shields up, dodge roll, stab. Well, it's not really a stab. What's it called when you hit someone with a hitty weapon? A thwack? A smack? A thump? You might notice he's got exquisitely sculpted butt cheeks. This is... And I love that you can see the hang of his belly underneath it. Like, people put a lot of thought into the design of this monster. And later on I'm going to talk about what the shared design elements of the different demons in the game mean. But for now, we're just going to kill him. Also, pretty much, well, not all, but most of the bosses in this game are much bigger than you, and you spend most of your time stabbing them in the butt, so... Victory achieved. Always a relieving thing to hear. So yeah, most first-time players will die on this guy a bunch of times before they get through. It's that kind of a game. The tutorial boss is really difficult if you've never played the game before. These messages are messages from the developers, but most of the other ones we see in the game, once we're out of this tutorial area, will be messages from other players. These aren't directed from one player to another player. Anyone can write a message where they want, and there's a chance of it appearing in another person's game session as they run through that area. Soul of a Lost Undead. That will be handy later on. Now, yeah, actually no, I was going to show off a thing, but that can wait until the next time we're here. So, here we have another cutscene, but fortunately this one doesn't have any dialogue, so I can keep talking.
Only in the ancient legends it is stated.
Well, now I just look stupid. Thanks, narrator.
One day an undead shall be chosen. To leave the undead asylum in pilgrimage to the land of the ancient lords. Lordran.
As much as I love this game and its fascinatingly deep lore, and how excellent the storytelling through environmental detail is, and how they don't really tell you anything and it's basically for you to figure out what this place is and what's going on and what's happened, and how satisfying that is to think about, I can't believe that they actually thought it was a good idea to name the land of ancient lords Lordran. I mean, come on, seriously? So yeah, this is Firelink Shrine. This is the game's main hub location. I'm just going to run through all of the game's stats so that I don't have to do it later, and then I will call it the end of this first episode. So it seems to have gone fairly well so far, which is good. You can see your items listed. There's all sorts of different stuff. Interestingly, the dark sign is an item in your inventory rather than some kind of element of your body. So you can have 2 weapons assigned to either hand, and you can switch between them at any time. There's 4 armor slots, 2 ring slots, 2 bolt slots, 2 arrow slots, and then 5 item slots. Then we've got here the, well, I'll just run down it in a list. It's pretty simple. Level is your level, your souls is the amount of souls you have, your vitality governs your health, attunement governs the amount of magic slots you have, endurance is how much endurance you have, strength is how much damage you do with strength scaling weapons, dexterity is how much damage you do with dexterity scaling weapons, resistance is your general resistance to different damage types, I think, and to poison, bleeding, etc. Intelligence is how effective you are with magic, and faith is how effective you are with miracles. Finally, humanity is not a stat that you raise by levelling up, it's a stat that you raise by using humanity granting items, or occasionally you get it just for killing something. Interestingly, you can get humanity from killing things that aren't human and never were human, so what exactly humanity is a bit of a mystery. HP is obvious, stamina is obvious. Well, I suppose HP is hit points if you've never played a video game before and don't know the terminology. Equipment load is how much equipment you are carrying and how much you can maximally carry. Then there's your weapon damages, your defences, poise, which is your resistance to getting knocked down, bleed resistance, poison resistance, curse resistance, item discovery, and attunement slots. Those should all be pretty obvious. Then there's a whole nother... no, it's not. Yeah, there's not a whole nother page of stats. I don't know why I thought there was. Yeah, so that's that. Incidentally, when you level up in this game, you don't, gain a level and then get a number of points to spend on different stats. You get exactly 1 point. Essentially, leveling up is raising one stat by 1 point. So, yeah. It's been lovely talking to you. I'll catch you next time. Bye.